Hello and welcome to the feature of the week. In this video, we will show you how to define additional NCA parameters via formulas that use NCA parameters that PKanalix can calculate by default and values of continuous covariates. As an example, I will show you how to calculate the Cmax one would obtain after a single dose using concentration data at steady state. Let's take a look at this multi-dose dataset. It contains pharmacokinetic profiles of the last interdose interval of a drug in a trial in which subjects received 7 doses in total with a dose once per day. The dataset does not contain any measurements before the last interdose interval. We are interested in estimating the maximum concentration, Cmax, one would obtain after a single dose, but using the steady-state data we have. Note that the Cmax listed in the list of available parameters is the Cmax of the steady-state profiles. We would like to calculate a different Cmax. To understand how the single-dose Cmax can be calculated, let's have a look at the curves of the first few interdose intervals. From these curves, we can extrapolate the concentrations that will carry over to the next interdose interval by assuming that the concentration follows an exponential decline. The speed of the decline is characterized by the NCA parameter lambda z. We can use lambda z and C0, the concentration at the end of the previous interdose interval, to write a formula to extrapolate the concentrations. Let's add an additional steady-state dose, for which we have measured concentrations, to our scheme. The Cmax of the first dose, which we want to calculate, is actually the same as the distance between the Cmax at steady state and the carryover concentration corresponding to the first and second dose only. We need to calculate this carryover concentration at time equal to Tmax. Since steady-state Cmax, C0, Tmax and lambda z can be calculated by PKanalix as NCA parameters, we can define a single dose Cmax as a secondary parameter that uses 4 other parameters: Cmax, C0, Tmax and lambda z. Let's create this single dose Cmax parameter in the interface. To do this, we can click on the plus icon in the list of NCA parameters. This will open a form where we need to specify the name of the parameter. We can then specify the parameter alias, the name that will be present in tables and plots. As with aliases of default NCA parameters, we can use subscript and superscript. We need to define the mathematical expression that will be used to calculate the parameter. The expression can contain mathematical operators, parentheses, certain mathematical functions such as square root, minimum, maximum, exponential function, as well as the names of PKanalix NCA parameters and headers of continuous covariates present in the dataset. Headers of covariates can be added to the formula using the buttons above. Let's write the formula previously shown on the screen. We can use handy autocomplete feature to ensure that we don't make any mistakes. The last piece of information that we need to provide is the unit of the parameter. If a unit of a custom parameter depends on the project units, strings time, amount, volume, concentration, and grading can be used for time, amount, volume, concentration, and dose normalization units defined in the project. If units are enabled in the project, we can see the unit preview to ensure that we entered it correctly. In my case, the Cmax has units of concentration. If the checkbox Add to Preferences is checked, the custom parameter will be saved in Preferences, and it will be available to reuse in other projects. Once we have created the custom parameter, it is automatically added to the list of NCA parameters where we can select if we want to calculate it. Through these icons, we can save the parameter to Preferences, if it is not already saved, edit the parameter, or remove it from the project. I will now save the parameters to Preferences. Once we run the NCA calculation, the parameter will appear in the Results tab and all the relevant plots, exactly like all of the other parameters that were calculated. If I now load another project, I can reuse the same parameter by selecting it from this drop-down menu. The parameter will be available in this dropdown if the parameter formula does not contain covariates that do not exist in the dataset of my new project, nor NCA parameters that cannot be calculated in the project. For example, if I load a project that contains urine data, Cmax, C0 and Tmax could not be calculated, so the parameter would not appear in the drop-down menu. Thank you and have a nice week.